Welcome, I'm Gassique, and today we'll be talking through how I made my song Unglory. But first, let's give it a listen. So Unglory actually started off from a jam in my old band, the Pistol Gang and the Preacher. I can put a link below because it's actually on Spotify, so you can go listen to it now. It was never fully realised. It was on an album called Live and Leftover, and half of it was a live gig, and the other half was all the jams and stuff that we never really got to finish. And there's some good stuff on there. And I always remember that one song, which was originally called I Don't Want You, and the main riff always sticking out to me. I thought, I really want to do something with that. Now, actually, that song, we played it live a few times, and there's a recording somewhere of a gig that we did at a place in central London called The Spice of Life. And you can listen to it. If I dig it out, I'll play it now. But otherwise, if I don't, then I can't. And yeah, it kind of took it through a different phase, and it was a bit more like rockier. And I remember thinking it kind of lost its dark edge. So I always wanted to do it again. And I thought, you know what, why not? I'd set up this little studio here in my office at the back of my garden. And I thought I'd give it a go. So this is what it originally sounded like. So when I started writing Unglory, it was actually fairly easy because it was all kind of there. So I have to do everything myself. And the first thing I wanted to make sure I got down properly was the guitar, because that guitar tone was very important to me. So I made sure I set that up. I used my Les Paul, my Epiphone Les Paul behind me, as you can see here. And I went through various pedals. I firstly went through my tremolo pedal, very faint, but just to kind of give it that slight warble effect that I quite liked. And then I ran it through my Boss delay pedal, so I could put a bit of delay on it. And I'm showing you these pedals, but I can't remember the exact settings I got it. I remember sitting there and I was tweaking it for a while, for probably about 45 minutes, just tweaking every little pedal just how I wanted it. So then I used my Holy Grail reverb pedal, which is great. And then all that fed into my Fender Twin Reverb Tone Master amp. And then I put that directly into my Mac and started recording. So what I'm going to do is show you my Logic session. The project file is a bit of a mess. I do sometimes start with a template and end with the best intentions, but it doesn't necessarily always end up that way. And you also notice that they're not stems. It's the actual mix, and that I've just kind of pushed it through. I haven't given it to a mixer or anything like that. I'm just doing it completely on the fly. It's absolutely the wrong thing to do, but I just don't have time to do it all properly. I just like to kind of get these things going and moving. I like to focus on the songwriting rather than spending too much time on getting all the details down and making it as clean and tidy as possible. And I'm not giving it to anyone. I mix and master it all myself, or try to. So that's kind of where that comes from. So I know it's going to give everyone a bit of an anxiety attack looking at it. So just right off the bat, I apologize. But just being completely transparent, completely raw, I haven't gone in trying to like tidy it up to make it look presentable to anyone else. This is how I recorded it, and this is how it was done. So there we go. So now I'm going to open up Logic Pro and take a look at the project. I'm going to just take you through a little bit of what I did here. So I've got my Les Paul DI, and then what I did is I also mic'd it up, and that's just with an SM58 leading in. And then I've got a Fender Jag, and then again DI'd and then mic'd up. I just did it for the sake of having options, but I've kind of used both. And then I've used an EQ on all of these, but as you can see, I've kind of as we play, I'll go to guitar one first. You see what I've done there? I've just kind of tried to accentuate it a little bit there. I mean, with all this stuff, I never really know what I'm doing, to be brutally honest. I'm just kind of going what I feel like I want to sound like. I've also used Amplitude. It'd be interesting to see what I've done here. So I've got it coming out of a reverb amp by the looks of it. I'm guessing to give it a bit more of a kick. So if I turn that, if I play it again, so with the EQ off, right, let me turn the amp off. So it's a bit deader. So I've obviously given it bit more life, but more high end in that sense. And then if I turn the EQ off, so that's the raw sound. EQ is not really doing that much, to be honest. And then amps doing most of the work. And then if I look at the Les Paul, that's from the mic. I think it's got kind of a bit more of a rich sound. All I've got here by the looks of it, I'm just going to loop that. So if we turn, I've got a compressor on here by the looks of it. Premium to 73. There's the settings, as you can see. Nothing crazy, kind of feel like maybe going on there, but and then again I've kind of EQ'd it very similar. I've panned it left as well slightly. So if I turn that compressor off, and then if I turn the EQ off, so that's the raw sound coming out. I mean, it's okay. I'm actually don't mind that too much. And then those two together. So I've done it, and I've kind of thought I probably need a bit more reverb is what's probably happened there. Right, and then let's stop that. So that's the Les Paul going on the left, and then let's have a look at the right. So we've got a guitar. I'm guessing I've got the same settings, maybe. I'm going to open up. Oh no, I've got a different amp. Oh, so this gives it more of the warbly effect, which I'll just show you. So this is going into, I don't know what that is. What is this? Leslie Power amp. It's crazy, isn't it? But I must have enjoyed looking at it. I can't remember doing it. And then what's the EQ? It's similar. So let's listen to the DI. So the Jag DI in. I mean, wow, you can hear that's super warbly. But if I take that off, it's got a little bit more high end. If I take the EQ off as well, the EQ is kind of deadening it slightly. But yeah, that's super warbly, so I've obviously done it as like an effect, just to do something a bit different. Then let's listen to the right, so this is panned hard, well not hard right actually, just mid right. It's funny I didn't put anything, I've kind of gone more left than right. It's probably something I've done during the mix where I just liked it better. So on this one, I've just got an EQ. It's quite low, again, I kind of wanted to keep it quite, bassy in that respect. So that's all the guitars. So if we hear them together, so it's kind of got a bit of an air. That's what the Les Paul is kind of giving it, and with that extra reverby, ampy stuff, and kind of lifting some of that high end. And but I think I've obviously put it together. I thought that was quite unique. I couldn't leave it. You might notice as well, like some people are like, oh, it's slightly out of tune, and I can kind of see what people say. I quite like it, but I think it's not this out of tune. It's this. It's maybe making it feel a little bit woozy and a bit drunk. And then maybe it's slightly out of tune. Or maybe it's slightly out of tune, but to be honest, I quite like it like that anyway. So that's what I've got going on with the guitars. Again, nothing particularly kind of crazy going on there. So with the drums, I've used Superior Drummer. I've got rid of the track, so I can't tell you exactly what it is. But I do remember that I changed some of the toms, and I changed the snare. So we can kind of go through it a little bit. So this is just the drums. I'm just going to kind of pretty good. As you can see, I've EQ'd each, and you can kind of see the curves there. Each bit. I think they sound pretty good, but again, it's more that I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm just kind of doing what I think. It sounds nice. It sounds right. But I think Superior Drummer is pretty good for kind of getting a realistic sound. A lot of people might say differently. Kick's pretty good. Yeah, I mean, I'd probably turn that sub up a little bit more in hindsight. See, and that's the kind of, if I do with the snares. I mean, I think it sounds pretty good for like for Superior Drummer. Yeah, and then I've got the two toms here. I wanted to make sure, when I listened to the original jam, Rich, who's my drummer, who's the pistol gang drummer, was doing a lot of tom work, and I kind of wanted to like pick up on that bit, and you can kind of hear it. But he always loves, like, he's normally just got, he doesn't normally use four, as in he normally uses just a tom and a floor tom and the snare, but he does like to use that floor tom when he's doing stuff, and you can hear, like, I've got two different ones I want to say. can't be right. But then it's pretty good. And all the mics are bleeding into each other because that's something Superior Drummer does, which is pretty cool. And then I've got some ambient mics nearby. So that kind of makes it feel it's like real, more natural sounding. And that's pretty good. So all the drums together is like this. I'm just gonna turn that off and then. Pretty good. But it's also like I should include these, and I have it. Again, I haven't really done much to these two. I think I've just got them on in the background. Maybe I should have compressed them a little bit rather than just EQ. But if I, when I look at my drum compression, well, I've kind of done a bit of a weird thing where I've put ozone on it. Yeah, it's very minimal by the looks of it. I've just an exciter and vintage limiter. I probably used the Master Assistant for this and then tweaked it a little bit. I don't remember doing much else. And then I've put a compressor after it. I don't really know why I've done that. But yeah, the fast attack, which is good for drums, I always think. And yeah, I've just kind of upped the output a little bit. I really wanted to kind of like really have it hit. So it's like, it does sound a bit like, it's really punching you. Dead, dude. So that's the drums. So the next thing is the bass. For some reason I had it muted. So I've got it like dead center. I kind of turned it down a little bit. I know I kind of had some problems with this. Now, I think what annoyed a lot of people is that I didn't kind of up the EQ where it should have been, but I kind of wanted to leave it quite light and crunchy. And I found that when I was listening to this in the car, it sounded fine. And the problem is when mixing is that your ears get used to a certain way of listening to it and certain frequencies, and you need to go away and come back quite regularly, which I always find quite difficult, especially when I kind of just want to get it done. But I remember specifically there was one version which I was like, it sounds brilliant, it's great. And then I listened to it in the car, and I tried to listen in. I always listen to it like here. Obviously, I've got monitors here. I listen to it on my headphones, my monitor headphones. I listen to it on my phone and see what it sounds like on my phone. Then I listen to it on my headphones that I use when I'm just walking around, in-ear ones. And then I listen to it in the car. And the car's always the one that kind of is the most telling, because that's how I listen to a lot of my music anyway, obviously, like just driving around. And it's kind of it can sound really weird when you think things sound great, and you turn into a car and it doesn't sound great at all. And that's exactly what happened here. When I was turning it up, I had so much low end that it was just become so boomy, it was unlistenable basically. So I brought some of that, some of the drum down, and I thought, you know what, I'm not going to go too heavy on the bass, as probably I should do. It's so deep and you can hear it, it's so dark, that I could have played around with it a little bit. I thought, you know what, having it quite that light, crunchy sound is actually okay. I didn't do any sidechain compression either. I wanted to be more bass first, if that makes sense. But I didn't turn the kick up too loud, so I kind of played with it where it doesn't necessarily dip anything else. It just kind of sits there. I don't know if that's probably not the best way to do it. I've no idea, but that's how it was done. I mean, I could probably just unmute these, and then you can hear it. Can I do that? So, but doesn't sound like it's probably why I've turned it down a little bit and put a separate EQ on it. It's really crunchy. It's like way too crunchy. But that's what the compressor's doing. It's really like weird and overly distorted. And there's the bass behind me, and it's not a particularly good bass. It's like a Westfield, I think it's whatever that is. But I only get it just to kind of lay down bass lines and record stuff like this. I don't. If someone wants to buy me a proper bass, then cool. But I never feel like I actually need it. And then I've got a channel strip. I mean, if I turn off like the EQ, I don't know what I'm doing there. I don't know how I've done it. I've obviously been playing it to make it sound a certain something. That's without. I think I DI'd this straight in. It sounds better with the amp. Without the compressor. Let's just turn all these off to start. So that's the raw signal. And I've kind of done some EQ. That's with the amp. Oh, it's just so nasty, but I obviously quite liked it at the time. Oh, that compressor is just like distorting the shit out of it. And then this channel strip, it's kind of squeezing it even further. And then I've got ozone 9, so I've got another ozone thing on it. You can see I've kind of done some bit. I've kind of stuck a limiter on it as well. And then I've got what's this? I've got another EQ thing kind of going on after the fact. So I've got a second EQ, and then I've got declick. So I think maybe I'd recorded it too high, and that's what's kind of dampening it a bit. It's weird I didn't do another take, but there we go. But I think I must have done it and then thought, I actually quite like it. So that's kind of what's going on with the bass. And then I can mute that. And that's what it ended up as. I don't mind it. I think maybe I could have done a bit more to that bass actually before I released it. So anyway, that's all the stuff without the vocals. And then anyway, the vocals, let's do the synth. So as you can see here, I've only got one synth going, and it's quite nice. I've put a bit of EQ on it and a compressor, as you can see. I don't know what synth it is. I've bounced it in place. The reason why I kind of tend to delete it, I don't really necessarily thought I was going to do this, but also I just kind of do things and move on, and I need to do it quickly, so I don't ever think about all this kind of stuff, so I do apologise. But as you can hear, it's nothing like crazy. It's just a nice ambient amp, and I've just put a little bit of comp in it. So if I turn these off, I've probably put something on it to begin with. So with that EQ on, you can see here I've kind of upped the middle. I've turned down a lot. Again, maybe it was too boomy to begin with. Yeah, maybe. So I think I've kind of kept it in the mids and kind of brought down the high a little bit. Maybe that's where my vocal's sitting. And then with the compression, I've got slow and warm bass. I've obviously chosen something and then tweaked it. I think it sounds quite nice. So if you put it all together, again, it just kind of gives it a bit of texture, right? Anyway, all these are made up of I do about 5 or 6 takes of the same song. So my process usually is that, with this it was a bit different because I already knew kind of how it was going, roughly. But I'll normally do 5 or 6 takes, but I'll also go through it and I will just improv over the top of it. And the reason why is because I sometimes like what comes out of it. I remember that I'm sure loads of people do it, but I've always kind of done it, and that's how I like to find like weird melodies. Is I'll try things out, and then when I listen back to it, I'm like, oh, you know what? There's something there or something here. I think a lot of the criticism I got for this song is that the vocal melody is not great, and I know what they mean in terms of like it's pretty flat. But to me, that was kind of part of it, and also I didn't want to start deviating away too much from the original jam, because that's what I kind of liked about it to begin with. The original jam is actually like a little bit different, and also the vocals in it are like overly like distorted, compressed, whatever. So it's almost like I'm sounding like I'm going through whatever, but it adds a kind of nice warmth to it. I did try and recreate that, and it just didn't sound right because it didn't really fit. And I was tweaking it a little bit. I spent so long on it, and I was like, you know what? It doesn't sound right. And I'm trying to get something that's like rich and dark. And so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it how I want to do it. So it was all recorded on this, which is my SM7B, Shure. And yeah, it was just recorded directly into this mic. So the vocals here are comped together through different takes, and I've just gone through, chosen the best bits. I know some people go for like word for word. I don't have time for that. So I do it in like bit pieces. So I send it to 2 buses, and it's basically different reverbs, and then they get spat out, large plate, small plate, and they get spat out into the mix as well. And sometimes I do it like kind of left, right, or something like that. It doesn't look like I've done it for this one for whatever reason, but normally it's just to kind of give it a bit more width. And maybe I played with it and I didn't quite like it, but right, so let's have a listen. See, now already, like looking back, I probably would have got rid of that little breath at the beginning. Sometimes I leave them in because I think it sounds quite natural. And and then sometimes it's too distracting, and I'm always doing it, and sometimes I don't even hear it properly, and then later on I'll hear it, but I think it's fun. So let's turn all this off, and then we can kind of hear what it sounds like. But I've got all this. I've got all that on. DSO, which I turned off for some reason, so I might as well keep it off it. So there's a bit of EQ there. My laugh's a simple silence. Nothing crazy. I mean, it's not coming through. Hold back on your search for violence. Compressor. Just a little touch. Nothing crazy going on there, as you can see. Nothing you want to just a little bit. I mean, I could have probably compressed it a little bit more. I've got another EQ. I don't really know why. It's not doing anything. It's just taking off a slight bit of the high end. This is why you should tidy up your projects. And then I've got a tape delay. Slight, very slight. A little bit. Wet is down to 10%. So that's kind of the vocal track, as it were, and then it's going sent to the... You can hear that reverb now. And then the vocal, it's all getting fed into this main vocal track, which again is going through another EQ, lifting it slightly, nothing again crazy. And I've got Nectar going on, which looks like I've used a vocal assistant again there and tweaked it slightly. And that's got a DSO in it anyway. Maybe I'll turn it off, it's too much. I've got a vocal doubler. I never really use these because I think they sound a bit... I think they sound that great. But it's just slight. So I've got another reverb here as well, which is a reverb, room one. So you can hear that on. It's kind of added a little bit more depth to it. I'm surprised. I usually have it on like chamber if I'm going really deep, but maybe that's a bit too much. And then Valhalla Shimmer, which kind of I use sometimes. I use it on my synth stuff. It literally does just that. So you can kind of, can you hear that? Hear that? And then you have the shimmer. See, it just gives it a little bit of shine. Another compressor going, a bit harder now. Vocal pop, double compression. And there's some explosives in there, and I probably could have gone in there and tackled that a little bit more. But I quite like, generally with all my stuff, I do it all myself, and I'm more about getting it across rather than spending so long trying to tweak and all this stuff. People probably say it's a bit messy, but I quite like it. I quite like the idea it's a bit messy. I think it sounds pretty good. So let's have a look quickly at the submix. So I've got Ozone 9 again just running. I imagine that's just been AI'd. We can turn it off. It's a bit dull. It kind of clears it up a little bit. It's quite nice. I've also got another compressor in it. Just a little bit. Apparently it's on a mix bus preset anyway, I think. So I probably just stuck that on to see what it's like. What else have I got here? Another compressor, a bus compressor. Yeah, it's doing something, but arguable. And then channel strip. Mastering. So anyway, let's turn the mastering off for a second. So this is what it sounds like without the mastering. So as you can hear, it's like, I should have probably turned these off to begin with so you could hear it all together, but it's fairly dull in that sense. I've got a limiter going on, a stealth limiter. It's just added a little bit of life. 3D boost, I put it on. dB boost. See? Lifted it slightly without going crazy. And then I've put another EQ on. Let's turn that off first. Right, so that's probably me trying to take down some of that boom as well that was on there. Where I've just gone tweak all this, and I've probably thought it was too boomy, and I've kind of pulled that down a little bit more. Arguably maybe too much. And then I've got the mastering console. I've got it on pop rock, and then I've probably tweaked it a little bit, or maybe I haven't. And then that just gives it that punch. This is pretty good as like a one-stop mastering console thing anyway. Yeah, I mean, that's how I mixed it, mastered it, and recorded it. When you look at it, it's actually fairly simple. I didn't do anything too crazy there. If anything, I did too much, and I should have maybe gone in a bit cleaner. And the problem is that each time I do this, because I'm stopping and starting, it just gets a bit difficult to keep track. And I always just go by my ears. But I'm sure that I've probably got way too much stuff on there than I actually needed. And it's probably best to keep it a lot simpler. But I quite like the way it ended up. So I hope you guys did too. I'm sure there's loads of people and producers out there that are telling me how I could do it better, what I've done wrong. And I'm not going to sit here and be like I'm an expert. So I'm quite happy for people to actually come back and tell me how wrong I am at doing this stuff, because I'm not professional. I just enjoy making it, and I like mucking around and seeing what I can come up with. And basically that's the point. Anyway, you can hear the song for yourself. I'll link it all in the links, and you can look around my channel and see the other songs that I've made. So yeah, that's Unglory from beginning to end, pretty much. So on the next video, I'll talk to you a bit more about the marketing, because I tried something new this time, and I used different companies like Submit Hub, Playlist Push, Hyped It, and all this, and I got interesting results back from it as well. So just from a indie musician perspective, I'll put a little video up about that, kind of going through what happened there, and my experience of it. So subscribe, like, do all that stuff, or don't, like whatever. Like the fact that you're watching it anyway is good enough. And I'll see you on the next one. Bye.